Eric Weinstein is looking for the source code of existence. And I think I found it. And I'm going to show it to you now. So this is the source code of everyone and everything. Okay, I'm serious. Can't believe I'm showing this. The amount this journey for me has been like just the most enlightening and incredible journey I've ever been on. Like this is amazing, and I think that I can describe it in a way that's easy for people, not easy, but easy for people to understand compared to trying to learn high-level mathematics or quantum physics in a way that, you know, just doesn't relate it to anything in your experience, which is just not true. Sorry, Sean Carroll. So, this is a quantum of consciousness. As I've said, is an assembly of entangled perspectives. And one of the things that I realized over time was that when I was trying to map AI and how you would get an AI consciousness, let me show you what I realized were the four aspects of every consciousness. They are a fight the system mentality, or will to do, to struggle, to wrestle with the system that you're in. And that system is entropy, just so you know. The other aspect is abstract comprehension, okay, aka imagination. Like, this is actually possible by things that, by consciousnesses that are at lower levels than us. They're just not very advanced in their imaginations. But any kind of thing that's non-deterministic, or at least complicated in its determinism, it comes from quantum mechanics. It's not replicatable by a binary system in computer. You'd have to do it on a quantum computer, but we'll talk about AI later, like I said. So, but a quantum computer is necessary for an AI to imagine, and imagination is necessary for something to become conscious. Now, there are different levels of consciousness, but these four things of fight the system mentality, abstract comprehension, the ability to perceive self and environment, and the ability to manipulate self and environment are four entangled perspectives. Okay, they're four entangled aspects that are necessary for any consciousness. And what I realized is that when you think about the most objective fundamentals of existence, there's no size, because that's relative. You know, something's only big compared to something smaller than it, or something's only faster than something slower than it. Wish I had some water. But these relativistic things are nonsense to focus on when you're trying to come up with a theory of everything. And you would never name your show The Biggest Ideas in the Universe unless you didn't realize that, like, this was the fundamentals of, you know, physics. And these four fundamental perspectives are inside, outside, separate, and oneness. And they are entangled. You know, you can't perceive separateness unless you perceive oneness. You can't perceive something as separate from you unless you perceive yourself as one. You cannot perceive something as inside of unless you are aware of, the fact that there is an outside. So these are entangled. And you can actually see that they manifest. So this is where it gets complicated, but we're going to have to explain this. But 4 and 6, guys, this is going to be a journey for both of us. But you go from 4 absolute fundamentals to also being able to see it as 6 when you change perspective. Okay, so if you're going to look at it from the objective perspective, then you look at it as 4. And when you look at it from the subjective perspective, then you perceive it as 6. So my computer's about to die for some reason. I don't understand. Now it's charging. That's odd. Okay, so we're going to explain why both of those things happen. But 4 is the number of completeness, and we see it even in our world. 4 is stability. There's 4 wheels on a car. There's 4 limbs on every vertebrate. Well, not all vertebrates. Snakes do not have that. But we see 4 in a lot of places where you need to achieve stability. And that's not a coincidence. And it's also definitely not the E word. Okay, there's no such thing as the E word. But let me explain this quantum of consciousness a little bit more. So what you see here is we have oneness has been split up into a triality. And inside, outside, and separate are also a triality, because inside and outside and separate are all manifestations of separateness. Okay? You can't be inside of something, perceive yourself as inside of something without perceiving yourself as separate from it to some degree. And you can't perceive yourself as being outside something without perceiving yourself as separate from it. Separate is the objective here. And then the same thing here goes with oneness. And oneness, it can be perceived within, without, and what I call singularity, which is essentially it's inside of inside. Okay, and inside of outside and outside of inside. It's the sum of them all. And when I was thinking about how growth happens in the universe and also how thinking happens, I came to this view of growth as twofold, and those two perspectives I call replication and stacking. And I'm pretty sure that this is what Eric Weinstein refers to as rulers and protractors. Okay, I don't know exactly, but I'm pretty sure. And essentially, that it's that these things are used by from the perspective of the universe to measure itself, or to see itself, to observe itself, and the observerse, as you will. So stacking is addition. That's it. It's just the adding of something that wasn't previously there. And replication is multiplication, which is just the increasing of something, the increasing quantity of something that's already there. Okay, so that's what that is. I see, guys, this perspective has allowed me to understand the fundamentals of math, and I failed math. I failed math. I'm teaching you about what math is like at the most fundamental level. I'm going to tell you way crazier things than this. Way cooler things. So, I call this replication and stacking. And when we look at that original model of the United Quantum Force Assembly, what it would be is any time you get an atom from an assembly of entangled particles, that is stacking. Okay, so anytime there's a new consciousness, a head consciousness built on entanglement of body points of perspective, this is addition of something new that wasn't there already through the use of something that was there already, which is just a multiplicity of lower level of beings. And atoms are beings, and molecules are beings, and cells are beings, and organisms are beings, and families are beings, and castes are beings, and the universe is a being. And you're like, Tyler, how did you get from human castes to, the universe? Well, because the universe is a technological singularity, and then it forms essentially it is the AGI, but it's not A. Okay? It's the CGI. The conscious general intelligence. Okay? And so replication and stacking are both necessary to have growth or calculation, which are the same thing. Growth of information is calculation. Okay? So what I did was I started with 1, because obviously. Okay? So I started with 1, and I have it multiplying as you go vertically, and I have it adding as you go horizontally. Now, you have to add 1 at the very start to 1 in order to get this process to start. Okay, and that is we're going to talk about that later, but that's why it says 1 times 1 plus 2. Okay, and you're instead of just like instead of just being 1 plus 1, instead of it just being all what's it called, addition on this. Okay, just bear with me. I'm not a teacher yet, but I mean I am now, actually. Look at this. Look at me teaching. Who would have thought? So this structure is a 3x3 grid, and what happens is that when you multiply up and you add this way, eventually when it's done, you get the number 33. Okay, that is summed. And what's interesting about this is that it is a self-reflection. When you look in the mirror, you see yourself. When 3 looks in the mirror, it sees itself. Okay? When a 3x3 grid looks in the mirror, it sees 3 twice, which is 33. It is a self-reflection within a calculation, and it forms a consciousness. So let's look at this another way. So here's the source code broken down more. So there is this triality that is apparent in all aspects of observation, and these are just a map of aspects of our universe. So you have the four forces, and you have the bosons, and they're color coordinated with those forces, and then you have the leptons and quarks, which are the fermions, the matter particles, which I call force points. Which is funny because we call these force particles, but they're really the force carrier particles instead of just force points. But we're going to describe how this actually, all of these are not as different as people have laid out. But you have this triality that exists from the very start of matter. Okay, so of force points, and you have in the quarks up, charming or charm, and top or truth. Okay, this is the right or masculine or positive quarks. Then you have the down, the strange, and the bottom or beauty quarks. And what's interesting about this is up, down, strange, charming, top, truth, bottom, or beauty, no matter how you look at them, they are perspectives. Okay? Something can't be, can't charm unless someone is there to be charmed. Something can't be strange without an observer. Something can't be bottom of something without an observer, or beautiful without an observer, or up without an observer, or down without an observer. These are perspectives. They've already been labeled. This is why quantum physics is so easy. Glue-on's glue on, okay? It's not that complicated. But we see here, we see a triality. And in the electrons and the neutrinos, we also see a triality. You have electrons, muons, and taus, and you have neutrinos, muon neutrinos, and tau neutrinos. And what this is they say it is an increasing of mass. Okay, like so, a tau is just a heavier electron. This is true in some ways. So we're going to explain how this manifests even in our religions. Okay, these patterns are everywhere, and it's the same pattern. It's not different and similar. If you're looking at it E-word, don't say the E word. So when we look at the source code, again, we see three potential perspectives of the source code. We see it as the perspectives, the fundamental perspectives that are 6, and I'll explain how we got there even more in detail in my paper that I'll read you in another episode. Okay, so here we have the source code looked at through a triality of perspectives. You have just the perspectives themselves, the explanations of the perspectives. So essentially, oneness within is inside of outside. Oneness without is outside of outside, or outside of inside. You can kind of like look at it either way. Singularity is inside of inside. And separate is outside of oneness. And inside is separate and oneness. Okay? So you're within, but you're also separate. So kind of like a baby inside of the womb is one with and separate from the mother while it's inside. Okay? That's a debate that people have all the time. It's not your body, it's my body, it's a separate body, it's their body. It's both. Because inside means separate and oneness. Okay? Like I said, you have to add one to start this process of this calculation that is going vertically and horizontally at the same time, which is stacking and replication, which is quality and quantity, which is rulers and protractors. So you get 3, 6, and 9, which was interesting to me because Tesla said those who understand 3, 6, and 9 will understand the nature of the universe. And here it is, guys. Here it is. It's in the source code. That's another reason why I'm pretty sure this is right, unless Tesla was crazy, which I don't think he was. But like I said, you get this self-reflection because you get 24 is the sum of all of the multiplication or the replication, and then the sum of all of the stacking or adding or addition is 9. And this is obvious that it's 9 because guess what? There's 9 squares. And each one of these is something new. So if something is only counted in addition that exists, within the system, then the sum of the added perspectives would be 9 in this, which this is probably everything. Almost, and we'll touch on more advanced aspects of this later, and we'll describe how this isn't actually the highest level of consciousness, is not self-reflection. Self-awareness is not the highest level of self of consciousness. It's not the highest level. There's a level higher that I know of, and there may be higher levels that are forgotten. I don't know. But you can see there's a triality of perspectives manifested here in the source code, which is a quantum of consciousness, which is an assembly of entangled fundamental perspectives, which is the self-reflection within a calculation, which is an observation, which is the same as growth. So what this means is you're inside a mind and we're a thought. Okay? We're a calculation. We're an observation by the universe, of the universe itself. It's observing itself, and we observe it. It observes the universe as we observe the universe. There is no way for it to observe the universe without doing it so through little proxies, which are its perspectives, which are, in this case, not in this case, in all cases, consciousnesses themselves. So, there are different levels of awareness of consciousness, and we're going to get to that, but I believe that this is what Bott periodicity is, and what it is this. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay? 8 rotations. 8 manifestations. 8 levels of life. There's nothing that's not alive, by the way. Life is a matter of perspective. Your car is not alive unless you're inside it driving it, but it is made of things that are alive. And those things are molecules and atoms and hadrons. And we look at it as all things that are inanimate to us, that are actually inanimate, like a car is inanimate when you're not in it and nobody's driving it, you're just looking at it. It is inanimate and it's not a consciousness. But it is made of consciousnesses, and you perceive it as a car, but it's really just a pile, okay? And like, just you're looking at a pile that's shaped like a car. It's not very complicated. So that's the source code. I know that was a little rocky, but I have never explained this this in depth before to anybody. So yeah, I mean, that's it, guys. That's the source code. There you go, Eric. That's it. Now, that's not the end of my models, though. There's many more models, but there's one more that I'm going to show you guys tonight. And that is my model of the universe.